Hey, what's up? Hello, my name is Emma, and today is Epic Reads Day. It is the second annual Epic Reads Day where HarperCollins Publishers opens up their doors to the general reading public for a day of author signings, author panels, and just general bookish fun. I want to give a big thank you to Epic Reads for sponsoring this video and inviting me to the event, and if you'd like to check out my vlog from last year's Epic Reads Day, I will link it down below. This year, Epic Reads Day is actually 2 days. It's the same event twice so that more people can attend. I was there yesterday, so if you see some like outfit changes from authors or myself, that is why. But today is going to be super fun. I'm excited to meet some authors for the first time and see others again. I also have my own presentation about booktube that I'm going to be doing in front of the whole audience, so I will definitely show you guys some of that. And if you want to check out the full PowerPoint presentation, I will link it in the description. It's all about how I got into booktube and how others can join, and I'm really happy with it, so I hope you guys enjoy it. And another reason why I think Epic Reads Day is so unique is because you really get some exclusive information on what it's like to work in the young adult publishing world. The Epic Reads team has a panel, there's a presentation on like book cover design, so if you're someone who's interested in getting into that world, it's a really useful event. Honestly, if I wasn't invited to Epic Reads Day as a guest, I would absolutely buy my own ticket and go every year just because it is such a cool bookish event. There's nothing else like it, and I get to meet a lot of awesome readers and authors. So I'm going to head into New York City, I'm gonna pick up some breakfast and make my way to the HarperCollins office to start Epic Reads Day. Unnecessary side note, just look at how colorful I am today. I never wear clothes like this, and I just feel like these last 2 days at Epic Reads Day have really inspired me to be more bright and colorful.
So I got super into reading, and after that week that I binged the entire Hunger Games series, my family noticed that I was an emotional person over the course of the week, and I would cry spontaneously. Not a lot has changed, but still. So my mom came up to me and she was like, "Michael, what's going on? Why are you so sad all the time?" And I would get a little choked up, and I'd be like, "Well," and she'd be like, what is it? What's wrong?" And I was like, "Books." And she was like, "Oh my God, the 6-year-old is back." But I thought about what I wanted to say in response to her, and being 14, I very maturely and sophisticatedly said to her, well, she said, "You know books aren't real." And so my response was, "You're not real, Mom." And ever since then, I have been obsessed with books.
So how do you approach a concept that starts out in your head and develop sort of like a whole world?
I'm really moved by history, particularly when thinking about fantasy. I was a big Harry Potter nerd growing up. I've always loved the fantastical, and both my parents are from the Dominican Republic, which is a place that has a lot of superstitions, a lot of ideas of magic and syncretism in it. And so the fantastical never felt far, right? Like it was never like, oh, she's a witch, like this is a broomstick and a hat. It's like, oh no, it's una bruja, right? And she's a real person who lives next door. And so for me, it's always been like, this isn't a separate genre. This is how and who we are and how we live. Like this is also contemporary. And so when I'm thinking about writing fantasy specifically, I'm always looking at where do I exist and where are the moments of magic that I know of.
I never realized how powerful like second language can be. So I was born and raised in the US and English was my first language. But I grew up in an Iranian household with parents who spoke to me in Farsi and I responded in English. So my understanding, my comprehension of Farsi is like so much stronger and more intense than my ability to speak it. And so I never really thought that it had that much of an impact on the way that I then process and interpret language. But it has, because Farsi is like an extremely poetic language. And I grew up with parents who, like, you know, we would read Rumi around the dinner table. Like, that was like what we did all the time. Like, my dad would just break out like, oh, we need to sit and talk about this, or I just read this amazing poem the other day, or, you know, like Rumi, Hafiz, Sadi. Like, I grew up on these poets, and the way in which they describe like basic things is just so different. I said this yesterday, but I always think about this one time. I was like trying on something I'd purchased, like a jacket or something, and my mom was like, and instead of telling me that she thought it looked bad, she said that it looked like the jacket was weeping on my body.
That's like a next level of shade.
It really is. Like, it's so, you like, my mom's takedowns are so beautiful. You're just sort of like, I don't even know that I'm offended.
I know.
I'm just impressed.
Here is, you want to choose it? No, the cover. Imagine me. Oh, the collective gasp. I love it.
So how did I get into booktube? When I was a senior in high school, yeah, pretty basic, right? Very depressing. When I was in high school, my senior year, all of my friends had really graduated, and so I was pretty lonely and isolated in my year. So to compensate for that, to really cope with the difficult emotions I was experiencing, reading became my lifeline. It was really the reason I got up in the morning, was to escape into these worlds and to interact with my favorite characters. And it was like literally everything to me. But as I got deeper into my love of reading and I started experiencing more stories, I really wanted to connect with other people who had the same passion, but I didn't know anyone in my immediate life who did that. So one day I was watching some interviews from a little movie called City of Bones. Have y'all heard of it? Yeah. So I was watching interviews with the cast, and all of a sudden there was just this video on my recommendations of these two girls called Two Girls Lost in Books, and they were basically just pronouncing things from the Mortal Instruments series. You know how fantasy worlds, we usually have like a whole set of terminology and stuff that's totally new. They were just saying how they pronounced it, and I was like, that is the coolest thing in the entire world. I had no idea all this time I spent on YouTube that people made videos about books. So I decided to make my own, and that's how I started my YouTube channel. Tips for new booktubers. My biggest one is always to not sweat the number. Anytime someone is building an online platform, they get really stressed about not having the right amount of views or followers. But the most important thing about booktube is that you're reading the books that you enjoy and you're talking about them. Befriend other booktubers, especially fellow newbies. I'm clearly pushing this big community friendship thing, but one of the best things of booktube is being able to meet other people who are in a similar position to you and are just starting out on booktube, and really I believe that there's a group for everyone. Formulaic videos are key. I think in any form of art or creative community, people think that they need to be the next big thing and always be producing something new, but especially when it's something that's new to you, you do have to get comfortable with it, and things like tags where you're just answering questions, or TBR lists of books that you're excited to read, sticking to those in the beginning can be really helpful in allowing you to discover your personality and your presence on video, because it's something that a lot of people don't have experience with, but you won't know unless you give it a try. It's also okay to talk about the same books. You don't have to be reading all of the newest releases, or you can stick to rereading the same 5 books over again. I know I do that all the time. It's totally okay to read what you are happy reading and talk about that on your channel.
and you shouldn't feel pressured to talk about what everyone else is talking about. And overall, just to be patient. It takes time to grow a following, it takes time to make friends, and it takes time to learn how to make videos and get to know your own video making style.
So I had fun with time travel because, like, who doesn't want to travel back in time? And so Jack gets the opportunity, even though he's not prepared for it, and then he kind of has to decide, you know, what will I do in order to try to correct the situation, in order to try to potentially save someone's life, right? And so I thought that was very interesting because, of course, as we know with time travel, every decision that you make somehow impacts another one, right? And now what happens though when you're seemingly trying to save someone that you love, someone that you feel like you can't live without, but then you endanger the life of someone else. So I enjoyed playing with the choices, and then kind of, like, I was surprising myself with where those threads led. I had no idea where they would lead, but each timeline, kind of playing around with it and seeing the different scenarios that Jack could find himself in, and then how he would try to get himself out, most of the time, you know, making tons of mistakes along the way, but trying to do so, trying to be a good friend, trying to be a good son, just exploring Jack's character in depth was really fun.
For me, it was actually kind of similar, like it was going back in time, particularly because my book takes place in 1998, so I got to be a teenager again. So I got to listen to all my favorite tracks and watch like music videos. I was telling someone how like 1998 was when Britney Spears first came out. Oh my God. So like Hit Me Baby One More Time was on repeat while I was like writing this book, and then I was looking at all like the clothes I was wearing and my hairstyle and kind of like, you know, questioning my life choices back then and thinking about like, you know, first crushes, like, you know, what I felt like when like a boy first liked me and like how he like actually projected that like crushing and that like, because we didn't have cell phones and we didn't have like social media, so it's like we had to write notes and like with real paper and pen, and I was like, wow, this is like so like touching. So it was nice to go back in time and see like how young Tiffany was started, how I got my roots in a sense.
Tiffany's book is set in the 90s and Justin's involves actual time travel. If you guys could go back in time anytime, what would you change and what would you keep the same?
I mean there's some men I like was like
So I wanted to sneak off to the green room to give you guys a little midday update. We've had so many panels and exciting things so far today. We just had some really delicious lunch from a place called Just Salad, and like their wraps are A+. I loved getting to watch Tahara Mafi speak. Yesterday, she had a panel with Elizabeth Acevedo, but she wasn't able to make it today. So I was sad that I don't get to meet her at the signing because I love her books, but like listening to Tahara Mafi talk is always a pleasure. I really enjoyed Tiffany D. Jackson and Justin A. Reynolds panel. I've read 2 books from Tiffany D. Jackson and I really, really love her stuff. And I have not yet read anything from Justin A. Reynolds, but we get his book to take home today, so I'm excited to dive in. I think my presentation went well. People seem to really like it. If you watch my channel a lot, you know that like I really love giving booktube advice, and it's something I've been doing for years on my channel, so it's really exciting to like speak in front of a group of people and be like, this is what has worked for me. So we just had lunch and now we're going to dive into a panel on book covers, how they are designed, where you start, how many times it changes until the end, and just some like really cool info about it. I really enjoyed the design panel last year because I had no idea how book covers were created and like how many different things go into them, but it's a really, really interesting part of the day. Next up, we have a panel from Team EpicReads where they're going to talk about like what it's like to work in book publishing. Then there's a panel with Shelby Mahurin and Victoria Aveyard, which should be cool. And then we're gonna end today with a signing and I'll show you all the awesome books I got. Also, I've been chatting a lot, which has been cool, either catching up with people I've met at past events or meeting new people for the first time. I just really love being able to connect with other readers and talk about what we're reading, what we're excited for, and recommending books to each other. It's just like a book lover's paradise. And I am excited to continue the day.
And what's great is we really work on a variety of titles. I worked on everything from historical fantasy, which tend to be I have a sword and I'm in a love triangle, all the way to the whodunit, which is I'm in a love triangle and someone got murdered.
And then I used an artist sample from her portfolio to see what two figures would look like on the cover to hint at a relationship, or the thematics of romance, you know, on the cover. And then I also tried out some chalk art lettering and a chalk art option to see if that was a route that we would want to go with, and then a simpler version where it's just the chalk lettering. And then afterwards, when you take a step back, you kind of see that there's a certain theme going on. So we split it up into 3 themes where it's photographic, illustrated, or chalk art and lettering. And then after talking with the internal team, we kind of figured out, hey, we don't want to do photographic, but let's have it all. Let's do both illustrated and chalk art. And so we combined those 2 ideas together.
So this is really an exercise in restraint and how edgy we could be. You'll see I have a eggplant option that was a little over the top. And, you know, we think it was a little too overly sexualized, but ultimately everybody liked the comp with the zipper lips at the top and felt like it was maybe a little too explicit. So in the end, we toned down the colors and illustrated it to not hit you over the head as much. So to wrap up our slides, we figured we would end off with the sentiment of the more things change, the more they stay the same. We found this book cover by Alan Conford from when we were looking for books in the 70s and 80s, and we're really struck by how similar it looks to the modern Jenny Han package. And all of which is to say that it's a super interesting time to be working in YA fiction.
Last November we were down in Y'all Fest in South Carolina, and we had brought a life-size standee of Willowdean doing the dumpling pose. Yeah, we know? Okay. She's big, and her box is bigger. So it got delivered to us, which was great, but then we had to bring it back to our hotel. So Audrey and I stole a hand cart from somebody. Yeah, we did, but it was there, and we're like, okay. So then we had to load it onto the hand cart, and then like take turns taking it to like the 6 blocks away to our hotel, like through traffic. I'm pretty sure someone beeped at us. Like I couldn't really see beyond the box, so that was an interesting experience. I had like just recently started too, and I was like, this is publishing.
For Tyler with Shelby Mahurian and Victoria Aveyard.
No, so her power was really tied up in her character from the very, very beginning. I knew because she had this ability, she sort of needed to be like a storm of a person, so it informed a lot of her personality. And this is, again, very dorky, a lot of the powers and superhuman abilities, inspiration in Red Queen wasn't just X-Men, it was Pokemon. So if anyone's read the first book, there's a lot of moments where they have to sort of fight each other in training, and there's moments where they're like, you're fire and you're water, who has the advantage? And I could hear Professor Oak being like, it's super effective. But that's where a lot of it came from. And someone once was like, oh, Mare's like a whiny Pikachu. And I was like, you are absolutely right. I was subconsciously going for that, I guess. But that was an inspiration.
So the magic system in Serpent and Dove you don't see originally, like in the beginning of the book, because Lou is actually in hiding. She's a witch, she's hiding her powers because
Bad things.
But yeah, people are after her, and plus she lives in a world where she'll get burned with a stake, you know, if anybody catches her using magic. But the magic, so it didn't inform her personality as much in the beginning because she's hiding it. But the magic system is similar to a lot of YA fantasies in that all magic comes with a price, but it's different in that that price has to be paid up front, and it can be like a very literal sacrifice. So like if you want to break a lock, you could break a finger, or you could break a relationship. It's up to you, or a million other things, because magic is different with each person. It's how they see the world. Like, so it was really challenging to develop because, you know, there are a million different possibilities for any given thing that you want to do. But I obviously just think a certain way, so it was hard to like, to keep it fresh, because obviously you're not going to break a finger, you know, for every time you want to do something. You have to have other possibilities.
And
So
you have to filter it through each character.
Exactly.
My favorite thing was Erosin, but that's such an incredible way to build a magic system because
it was painful to build.
it's painful, but it seems simple from the outside, which is the best thing when we're building these worlds, because we have to make them simple and digestible for an audience, because we're telling a story and the world isn't the entire focus. It has to be something that you guys can metabolize, because
on the go.
Yeah,
You're learning
exactly.
a lot of
So that's really brilliant.
So Epic Reads Day has concluded for 2019 and it was an absolute blast. Absolutely everything from beginning to end of today was great, but let me think of a few highlights. Of course, I enjoyed doing my presentation on BookTube, and again, if you guys are interested in seeing it in full or checking out the slides, I will link both of those down below. I was super excited to see Tiffany D. Jackson because when I first met her last year, I hadn't read any of her books, and this year I recently read 2 of her books, so I basically just got to gush over everything I've read from her recently, and she was such a sweetie. Meeting Shelby Mahurin was another thing I was like really looking forward to today, because I just love Serpent and Dove so much and I want everyone to read it. And I got to tell her in person how much I loved her book and her world and her characters, so that was really cool. To close out this vlog, I want to give you guys a little haul of everything I got at Epic Reads Day today, because it's not just all the events, you get a massive goodie bag. First up is this Epic Reads tote bag that says no shelf control on it, and I love this bag so much. It is so colorful and fun, and I don't have anything like it. Then we also got this tumbler from LitJoy Create. They were giving away a few boxes as raffle prizes today, but everyone got to take this tumbler that just says share the joy and has adorable illustrations all over it. We got a set of gel pens from Uli, which was really exciting because I have not touched gel pens since I was like 7. Next up is this Epic Reads banner that you could like hang on a wall. My plan for this is to use it to put all of my bookish pins on, because right now they're just sitting in a bag collecting dust in my drawer. How convenient that the next item they gave us was a bookish pin. It has a book on it that says YA all day, and I am just obsessed with it. And those are just like the items. That doesn't even include the 6 brand new, mostly signed books that I got today. First is the Red Queen Collector's Edition, signed by Victoria Aveyard, with The Fire and High by Elizabeth Acevedo, which is unfortunately not signed by her, but hopefully I'll get the chance to meet her in the future. Let Me Hear a Rhyme, which is signed by Tiffany D. Jackson, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to finally hold the hardcover in my hands. The Opposite of Always, signed by Justin A. Reynolds. The collector's edition of Shatter Me, signed by Tahara Mafi. And listen, I have just been looking for an excuse to replace all of my paperbacks of the Shatter Me series with these gorgeous hardcovers, and like the time has finally come. And last but certainly not least, Serpent and Dove, signed by Shelby Mahurin, and this book comes out on September 3rd, so everyone who went to Epic Reads Day got this book before it comes out. Speaking of Serpent and Dove, do you want to know 2 things I learned today about the cover that that I had no idea about until now. First up, this snake is an ampersand, otherwise known as the and symbol, which, like, how did I not know this before? And secondly, during Shelby and Victoria's panel, they were talking about how it's called Serpent and Dove, and there's obviously a serpent on the cover, and I was like, oh my gosh, did they do the serpent on book 1 so that they could do the dove on book 2? And an Epic Reads team member goes, well, there's already a dove on it. There's the dove's head, there's its tail, and there's its wings. I had no idea. So yeah, that is the really awesome goodie bag I got from today, and I'm super, super excited about all those books and items. I did grab one more thing today. Epic Reads just recently launched their first merchandise line, and they were selling some t-shirts there, so I got this one that says, "It's lit." For the record, I'm not just saying this, but this is the comfiest t-shirt I own. And I say that with absolute confidence because I got an Epic Reads shirt last year of the same material, and I wear it all the time, and it still feels like the day I got it. So that really concludes today's vlog. Thank you so much to Epic Reads for hosting such an awesome event and inviting me. Thank you so much to anyone who came up to me and chatted today, because I had so much fun getting to know you. Epic Reads Day is sort of like an annual thing now, so if you are interested in coming next year, I would highly, highly recommend it. It is open to the public. Anyone can go. It is a one-of-a-kind book event that I love to be a part of, and I really hope to see you there next year. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon for a new one. Bye!